If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Frozen Fist. Yes, Frozen Fist. It is so cold in New Jersey, and there's Jack smiling in Florida. Welcome to Glove Fist. My name is Frank Latirzo, former writer, full-time observer. At least I try to be. Joined by Jack Hirsch, coming from sunny Florida, former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. We thought we were going to have a good fight to talk about, Jack. Didn't work out that way, did it?
Well, it was a big event. Madison Square Garden sold out. It put boxing in the news. And look, it was a good fight in the sense that if you want to appreciate Shakur Stevenson's mastery during the fight, the greatness he showed during the fight, and if you want to project what's ahead for him in his career, it was a meaningful fight. And, you know, boxing's an entertainment business, Frank. As bad a loss as it was for Lopez. Okay, he lost a lopsided decision. Ryan Garcia lost a lopsided decision to Raleigh Romero, who's not in Shakur Stevenson's league. And in his next fight coming up very soon, Ryan Garcia is being given a WBC title shot, a pay-per-view event. He's still a big name in boxing. Frank, we both know it's the brand. It's the brand.
Joe, Jack, but nobody's saying that Tio's career is over. I mean, he had a terrible night on a lot of fronts, but no, his career today, his career is not over. It's like he's fought some good guys, and this time he was exposed a little bit to a guy that you've been pretty hot on for a while, and I think I have been too. That, you know, Shakur may be one of the best fighters in the sport. He's definitely working his way on to that platitude, that ladder, that overall aura about being like, you know, the next Crawford or Mayweather. Jack, I'll tell you this much, though. Go ahead.
He's there. Don't say he's working his way toward being one of the best fighters in the sport.
Okay, I'll give him that. Best players in the sport today. Yes, I'll go that. But I don't want to hear all-time great yet.
No. Well, listen, let his career play out. But I'm going to tell you this, Frank. You're pretty good at projecting. And if you look at all the fighters on the horizon, he's not going to get beat for quite a while, if at all. I mean, the next few years, the next 2-3 years, there's no one who's going to come close to touching him. No one.
Jack, he's one of those versatile guys. He is physically stronger than his punch would indicate. But again, as Ali said, he punches hard enough to win. But Jack, I never thought it would be that easy. But I think what threw people off, because Teofimo was the perceived puncher in the fight, was, Jack, that's not who he is. He is not an attacker. He is a counterpunch, wait and react guy. And when he has to go after you and get you, he was totally exposed Saturday night that he has no Duran in him at all. He cannot pursue. And as we said before the fight, Tio had to make Shakur uncomfortable. And Jack, he didn't do that for 1 minute. I mean, look, Shakur can fight, but what you have to do is you have to jump on him. And I don't mean Hagler Hearns. I mean, jump on him before he gets that first step back. Jack, the whole night, Stevenson took one step back, and that was just enough to keep from getting tagged by Teofimo. And then he was countered. I didn't hear any instruction on Teofimo's corner, in his corner, to say about how to go get him. And there was just no adjustment, Jack. And he reminded me of a boat at sea with no rudder and no phone to call the Coast Guard for anybody to come and save him. And that's what it looked like. He just didn't know what to do. I mean, would he have won anyhow? Probably not. But look, to beat Stevenson, you either have to be Roberto Duran or you have to be a big, long-range puncher like a Tommy Hearns and get him from outside. If you can't get him from outside, you have to go in and make him uncomfortable. He never did it one time, Jack, in 12 rounds.
Well, early in Teo's career, Teofimo Lopez Sr. actually had Joey Gamache working with him. I don't know what happened on the relationship there, but Joey was another voice. But you know what it is? I mean, Teo Sr. has done a brilliant job with his son throughout his career, but sometimes things run its course. And we see it happen with coaches in football. Bill Belichick is said by some to be the greatest coach in NFL history, yet it was time to move on from him. His time had run its course, and maybe the best thing for Teofimo Lopez Jr.'s career, and Teo Sr. might get mad at me, is to bring in someone else of stature, of profile. Teo Sr. can still be involved in some way, but maybe turn the reins over to an Emmanuel Stewart type. It helps on two fronts. It doesn't only help you in the ring, it helps your image public relations wise and your marketability, because it gives your career that jolt you with someone else. And the greatest fighters, at least of the last 40 years, I mean, they've altered trainers, they've moved around a little bit with success. More often than not, I got to be honest, Frank, it doesn't work out at the end. It doesn't work out at the end. I mean, but it would help public relations wise, at least, that Teo's getting a brand new start.
Jack, but here's the thing. Okay, look, and I agree with everything you just said.
Joe Burton.
I don't think if Emmanuel Stewart or Dundee or Benton or Ray Arcel, you can name them all, Jimmy DeForest, I don't think it would have made a difference in the outcome. But, Jack, there are things you can do. Look, Shakur is the better fighter. He's the more adaptable fighter. He's the more skilled fighter. But you just can't let him pick his spots. And I try to tell guys that when you have a guy that's a perceived mover boxer like Shakur, counterpuncher, and the other guy who the only thing he's bringing to the party is he may be the more physical guy and he's the bigger puncher. But if he can't impose that on the other guy, the so-called boxer, then Jackie has no chance. And what bothered me is I didn't even see Teofimo really try to do anything else. And there's two reasons. He didn't know what to do. I don't think he did. I think he was totally lost and flustered. And the other thing is, I had a couple buddies during the fight text me, and they were saying, this Stevenson, he's good, but he's boring, but he can't punch his way out of a wet paper bag. And I always tell those guys that, look, he hits hard enough to keep the other guy from taking chances. Okay. People said that Leonard never hurt Hagler, but yet Hagler didn't go at him like he was handcuffed. I saw that the other night. Do I think he hurt Teofimo? No, but I think he has enough punch, Jack, to keep a guy who's a little hesitant and trying to figure his way in. I think when he gets hit and punched in the face, it blunts him and it interrupts him, and it gives a guy like Shakur all the time and room to move around and to do what he wants. In closing, think about this. Jack, of all the guys that we saw fight, and I'm going to use Durant, I'm going to use Leonard and Ali, who were the two guys that gave them the most trouble when all were at their best? Durant for Leonard and Frazier for Ali. Why? Because they made them uncomfortable and they rushed them. And when you make the boxer rush, he can't get anything on his punches, and he's forced to do things he doesn't want to do. And it takes all his effectiveness away. He's fighting to keep you off instead of to set you up.
Yeah, a part of it too could be that Teofimo Lopez Jr. maybe peaked a few years ago. I mean, the Lopez and the Lomachenko fight, very aggressive, very hard punching, very powerful. He went right to Lomachenko.
But he had to do that, Jack. He had to do that because everybody knows that Lomachenko, or knew at the time, that you can't let him back you up. Where if you back him up, it's a little bit different. So I think he was forced to do that. I
So
don't
let
think
me
he felt
say,
he had to do that with Shakur. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you didn't cut me off. About the corner, I want to refer to that. Sometimes you have the media, the public, they want to hear coach say something, and sometimes it doesn't mean anything. It's just said for show. I'm going to give you an example. The Petronellis were criticized, I think it was in KO magazine, before round 12 of the Leonard fight when Hagler against Leonard. Angelo Dundee famously said, new champion, new champion. He wasn't giving technical advice, Dundee. He was just giving a pep talk to Leonard, and Leonard went, yeah, that was the thing to do. Meanwhile, the Petronellis were giving technical advice, but they were doing it very calmly. They said, we have a lot riding on this round, Marvin. They were talking to him. But people wanted them to get animated, and they were praising Dundee, which they should have, because Dundee was all animated. He supposedly psyched this guy, and the Petronellis weren't inspiring that guy. That's not the style. The relationships are different. I agree with you in this. Technical advice should have been forthcoming now and then at least. To try this, try that, have a plan B. Something is going
Especially
wrong.
when the other guy's more talented. But with the Dundee Petronello scenario, I think both guys did what they had to do in that case, because Dundee knew after 11 rounds, his guy basically followed the plan that they wanted. Now he just had to get him through that last round, because he had to figure that Hagler was going to really come after him. Where I think the Petronellis knew this thing is, it could hinge on this round, and we got to keep you focused, and you got to make sure you don't give this one away or let him steal it. So I think they were both right. I think you're right about the cornerman. I think sometimes it's overrated. But boy, Jack Teo needed some help the other night, because
he needed help, but keep this in mind. Fighters like Shakur Stevenson, Floyd Mayweather, Pernell Whitaker, they have the worst style to fight against, the absolute worst style. And I could tell you this, a guy like Sugar Ray Leonard, I would say is a greater fighter than the three I just mentioned, but they might actually beat him based on a style matchup, because when Leonard first became a champion, he stopped Wilfred Benitez. Benitez made him miss continuously, and Benitez, to a large degree, is a shutdown type of fighter, but not as much as a Stevenson and Mayweather, because they base their whole style on being shutdown fighters. So Stevenson, his style alone, to crack that code, it is so difficult.
But Jack, here's how you do it. Duran showed you how to do it. And as long as we've been talking about Terrence Crawford, and you know how much I think of him, and I think he's 50-50 versus Leonard. But who is the fighter I said is the one guy who I really think would be a problem for him? And I've always said it would be Duran of the first Leonard fight, because Crawford couldn't really hurt him, and Duran would put so much pressure on him and take away his space and suffocate him. That's how you have to fight the guys like Leonard and Stevenson. Who gave Mayweather his toughest fight? Castillo. Why? Because he pressured the hell out of him the first time, and Floyd wasn't used to that. Did he adjust the second time? Yes, but the first time he hadn't seen that. I don't know who he is, but how dare you? Floyd is the best ever. The best what?
That's for you, Frank. That's for you.
The best moneymaker, yes.
But the way to beat Stevenson, easier said than done. Much easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You throw him out of his comfort zone. You do not allow him to fight a control type fight.
Exactly.
You force him into a wide open fight. You force him to move around the ring. Yancey Durham, Frazier's manager, said something revealing when Ali first came back to the ring and he beat Jerry Quarry, how his guy Frazier was going to fight Ali. He said, we're going to make Ali run around the ring, not allow him to run around the ring.
It's a lot different going back on your own than when someone is forcing you to go back.
Exactly. And you have to get Stevenson out of his comfort zone. And you're right, the only way you're going to do it's attacking. If you're going to counter punch and just stand in the middle of the ring, it's not going to be done.
You can't wait and react to him, Jack, because you'll always be second and you'll lose.
And yeah, but I don't see anyone on the horizon. I'm going to be honest.
And that leads me to another point. We talk about Duran. We talk about Frazier. Chavez would be in that conversation too, on some levels. There are no outstanding, great pressure fighters today, with maybe the exception of Inouye, where, Jack, it's almost a lost art today. And if you're a pressure fighter, that breaks the code of counterpunchers and boxers. The only time that style really doesn't work, and it's the hardest style to fight, is if you're going up against a guy like when Duran fought Hearns. He was going up against a guy who the only shot he had was to back him up and get inside. The problem was Hearns could hurt him before he got there. And the same thing happened to Smoking Joe. He could never get inside. If he could have gotten inside on Foreman, he might have got some things done. But George hurt him before he got there. And that's the one time the pressure guy is at the disadvantage, when he runs into the puncher. But against guys that like to counterpunch, like Quarry, what happened when he fought Frazier? Frazier didn't give him anything to counter, Jack, because he was putting so much pressure on him. Quarry was just trying to fight to stem the tide. The guy to beat Stevenson is probably not on the horizon right now, unless he gets crazy and tries to go up and wait.
Well, the only one I could see, but this wouldn't make any sense, and he wouldn't do it, and it wouldn't make any sense. No one wants him to do it. Meet Boots Ennis as junior middleweight, perhaps. I mean, that about would be the only thing, but that makes no sense at all. You know what I didn't like about Stevenson after the fight? This is what kind of bothered me a little bit, okay? He actually is calling out Conor Benn. You're a big star, Shakur, now. You're a big star. Don't lower yourself to call out the likes of Conor Benn. Nothing against Conor Benn as a person. He seems to be a delightful guy. He had these drug testing issues, got suspended, but let's say that's all behind him, okay? Let's say that's all behind him. But Stevenson is saying, oh, no, he's going to have to come down and wait. He says, Chris Eubank killed himself trying to make weight against Conor Benn. So Conor Benn should do the same thing. So he's asking an inferior opponent to kill himself making weight. I'm going to tell you something.
Where do you get that from, Jack?
Shakur Stevenson would handily beat Conor Benn at any weight. Conor Benn is no threat to him. If they let Conor Benn come in at 175, he's not touching Stevenson.
Jack, however, where did Stevenson? We're going to get to Joe Bergman in a second. Jack, where did Stevenson get that from? That is something that Floyd would do after winning a big fight. Conor Benn just won a big fight. His name is big, and Floyd would try to make Conor Benn out to be Godzilla, and that would be his way of going up and making the next fight another guy with a title he could say he beat. It has Mayweather written all over it. Now, as far as what Joe Bergman just said about Tank, I would say Tank is the only guy under welterweight that might have a chance, but that's never going to happen, because Tank may be doing time and be out of boxing for the next couple years because of all the issues he's had in his domestic life. But Tank does have this.
Frank, they're diminishing with his inactivity. He could do no more than get a draw against Lamont Roach. He's not going to present a serious.
I don't think that's the end of him, Jack. I think he has more left. I'm not saying he would beat Shakur, but Tank has speed and power, and he can box, and he does know how to fight. Would I pick him to win? No, but I would like to see it.
Tank Davis at his best would represent a real threat because he's a big, big puncher. So you'd have to think at some point.
And he knows how to deliver his punch, Jack. That's also a factor.
At some point during the fight, he'll force Stevenson to the ropes, and that would give him an opportunity. Whether he'd cash in on it or not, I don't think so, but he'd have a realistic chance. realistic chance. I wouldn't discard
But we're not
it.
going to see it. But I agree. The other thing I think people lost sight of, Jack, we touched on this, and I said this the day of the fight when I posted. Who are the influences in Stevenson's life? Mayweather, Andre Ward, and Crawford. All three retired undefeated. All three, you could say, were the best of their era at the time. And I knew Stevenson was going to have his A game because I'm sure inside he wants one day to be looked at in the same vein that they do. And how did they get there? They won their signature fights and they looked good doing it. And this was driving Stevenson also. He had Crawford there pumping him up. Crawford's just coming off that big one over Canelo. I think that Stevenson drew from that a little bit. Andre Ward was in the dressing room with him. We know he's close with Mayweather. He kind of fights like Mayweather a little bit. I think he really drew from that, and he knew he had to win this fight clean without any doubt, and he did.
Oh, no, he didn't. Look, this was Stevenson's coming out party. He needed this big fight. This now puts him on the big stage. Just the way Crawford beating Canelo finally made Crawford a genuine star. A genuine star. We knew how great he was to hardcore boxing fans, but it made Crawford a major, major name.
The Spence fight put him on the road. This got him through the gate, the Canelo fight.
Yeah, well, but for Stevenson, what's next? I mean, I'm not against giving a guy a gimme of a fight. If Conor Ben is willing to come down and weight, he says he's now willing to do it, but money sometimes talks, Frank. If they offer Conor Ben an incredible amount of money, and maybe Shakur Stevenson thinks, okay, it's going to England. I'm the champ of this division, but I'm not putting my title on the line. He might even decide, I'll go 50-50 with Conor Ben if they're offering filthy money and they go to Wembley Stadium, 100,000 people. It would be insane. He's allowed to have a gimme.
Mark my word, Jack. We're going to see him do the Mayweather routine where he's going to pump up guys.
So.
I think so. We'll find out. And Joe Bergman,
Mayweather beat good fighters, Frank.
Well, but not when he beat them. They weren't that good when he beat them, Jack. Everyone was on the slide except Canelo and Castillo, and Canelo was too green. I think that Stevenson's going to go that route. And Jack, the difference between Stevenson and Crawford is Crawford put you to sleep. When I mean his opponents, he put to sleep. Stevenson can put you to sleep watching him navigate a fight. Crawford had finishing power and he knocked guys out. And that's the difference between those two.
Yeah, but think of Stevenson's last fight against William Zepeda. He tried to stay in the pocket more and fight. And it wasn't a bad fight. And Zepeda put up a strong effort through a ton of punches. But Stevenson is a level above. He's a level above. If Zepeda
and Stevenson is durable and takes a better shot than people think.
If William Zepeda was a greater fighter than he actually is, he would have presented a very serious challenge based on his style and the quantity of punches he was throwing.
And Jack, that's what it'll take. It'll take a great fighter to beat him. Now, since we've covered that, I'm going to have a little fun with you. Do you remember about 8 months ago when Teofimo was talking about fighting Crawford and you were trying to make a case for Teofimo, and I told you if they fought, it would be murder? Could you imagine if Teofimo was in there with Crawford the other night? That fight would have gone 5 rounds and they would have carried him out.
Yeah, but Frank, first off, Teo Sr., it says he listens to the show if he gets a chance.
Well, I went at it with him that night, and I said, your kid could never beat Crawford.
Okay, but I could throw this at you too, okay? The night Crawford started out as a lightweight, correct?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's say when Crawford was a lightweight, the night he beat Lomachenko, he was opposite Crawford. It certainly wouldn't be a mismatch, would it?
It doesn't go the distance.
It wouldn't be a mismatch. I mean, Tio would bring some serious heat to Crawford. I mean,
Oh, Jack,
you know,
how
the
can
night
you
before
say that? He
Lomachenko.
couldn't do
No,
anything with
believe me,
Shakur.
I would pick Crawford. Don't get me wrong. I would pick Crawford, but it certainly wouldn't be a joke that version of Tio who beat Lomachenko. And I think even Crawford would realize, no,
Wouldn't be a joke, no, but it would be a one-sided fight, and it could
but then
only
you can
end
say
one
against
way.
anyone. Listen, if you want to have a little more fun with me, and I was having fun with the dad about Bucinis, the much bigger guy too, who they were calling out. But listen, give Lopez credit for this. Did he ever really duck anyone? The only
No, I
one
like the kid, Jack. I do.
yeah, yeah, the only one
He's
he
outstanding. He's not great. He's
I
outstanding.
think I think his mistake was he veered away from Haney. He had that fight made and kind of pulled out for whatever reason and went to Stevenson, which was a much harder fight than Haney. I mean, Haney, he would have actually had, I think, a chance against. Maybe you disagree based on what you saw Saturday night. Or he certainly would have done better against Haney than he did against Stevenson.
I think he would have been able to get Haney to mix it up more with him, and that would have given him a better shot. I agree with that. I'm not sure he beats him. He
I don't
probably,
know where
right now, I
Lopez,
don't think he does, but
where does Lopez go from here? I would think they'll give him a moderate opponent his next fight, someone he's going to beat, and then they'll try to put him in a match that could be entertaining. You know what might be actually crazy, a viable match? If Ryan Garcia defeats Barrios and wins that version of a title, maybe Tio gets a soft win in the meantime, and that's a trash talking fight that could sell. Maybe Manny Pacquiao and Tio. I mean, who wants to see Pacquiao fight? But he could still fight a bit at age 46.
it's a shame that Tio didn't capitalize, Jack, after he beat Lomachenko to the way he could have. Yes, but here's what he has to do now. He has to fight again, and he has to look good in his next fight so people forget about this. Because, again, we get on fighters that don't fight anybody. Here's a guy that he has 3 big-name opponents, and Lomachenko, Josh Taylor, and now Stevenson. And he's 2-1 in those fights. He's really never embarrassed himself. He just didn't.
Arnold Barboza, unbeaten in 31 fights, a very good fighter who he beat.
There you go. There are fights out there for him. He has to find his weight, and he has to find the right opponent.
Yeah, but whenever a fighter loses a fight the way Lopez did, they either change trainers, and that's been recommended with the media and all, or they move up in weight, or move down in weight. They don't stay in the same weight class.
You know what I saw, Jack? I saw a quote where he said, I was gambling and the dealer didn't give me the right cards. Lopez told the Stomping Ground after the fight. And I'm thinking, Jesus, I mean, come on. You got to make your own hand. You don't play the hand that the dealer gives you. That's not a good assessment. You have to make your own hand.
Part of the problem could have been, too, Lopez may have just been thinking knockout. I got to hit him as hard as I can because he knew he wasn't going to win the decision. But look, Shakur Stevenson is the better fighter. And I'm going to be honest, I could say it now. If they, and it pains me to say it, but if they fought once a month the next couple of years, Teofimo's not beating him.
No, he would not be 1 in 10 times. It's just a bad matchup.
Bad matchup. Some matchups just aren't good for fighters. No matchup is good for any opponent of Stevenson's virtually, but you're right. The only one who'd have a chance of beating him is someone who could fight the way William Cepeda did against him, but is of a higher level than Cepeda could hit.
And a little bit bigger, a little more physicality too, because he couldn't make Shakur do anything.
More punch, something to shake him up, really get him out of his comfort zone. Speaking of England before, there was a heavyweight fight. They announced it today. They met at Times Square. And I'm not thrilled about it. Deontay Wilder against Derek Chisora. I mean, Wilder has nothing left. Chisora, you could say, is a faded old war horse, but he's going to walk right through Wilder.
Jack, that's interesting, though, because Chisora is a guy that Wilder will not have a hard time finding with his right hand. So if Wilder still has any semblance of that right hand, that could be an interesting fight. I mean, to me, that's left hook versus right hand. And the right hand gets there first, usually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it. You're thinking of Wilder when he was at his absolute best. And then you could say Chisora is hittable, so you'd give him a good shot at tagging Chisora. I mean, I just don't. I mean, he looks
so basically, you don't think there's anything left of Wilder's punch?
No, not at all. Not at all. Look,
so we agree on that, where most people think the punch is last, it's first to go.
Yeah, Sang. His last fight against Sang, where was the punch? Where was the punch? Sang was right in front of him. Right in front of him. And the fight before, okay, Joseph Parker's at least versatile and, maybe a bit harder to hit, but it was missing in that fight.
Well, they're both going to get paid probably pretty good money. I hope neither one of them gets hurt. I understand that Wilder's wife or his fiance took him for some money. So I hope that Wilder doesn't get hurt. I don't want to see Chisora get hurt. He's been great for the sport. He's not a world beater, but he's fought everybody, and he's never really embarrassed himself. That should be a fun fight, Jack, for the round or two at last.
Yeah, but we talk about certain fights we don't want to see or certain opponents selected. But when you're an outstanding champion, I'm a big believer, you're allowed an easy fight now and then.
I agree.
You're allowed to pick your opponent. Like we said with Shakur Stevenson, his next fight, let him fight whoever he wants. He just had this big mega fight. And then the fight after, an easy matchup. Then I want to see a match tough after that with the best available opponent. In the case of Alexander Usyk, he's only been taking the hardest fights, basically. Daniel Dubois, a couple of fights against after Dubois beat Joshua. He fought Joshua twice, Fury twice. I find it pretty distasteful, though, him fighting. It looks like he might fight Andy Ruiz. And it's not because of what Usyk is doing. Ruiz is so undeserving that it's sickening. Absolutely sickening. Oh, wow. Speaking of that, I just got Teofimo Lopez. I sent him before the show a note of support. He just texted me back with the word thanks to let you know. Okay.
That was Senior?
Senior, yeah. I said to him and his son. I did a note to both of them. So, one of the two got back to me, so whatever.
Again, just Teofimo's got to get busy. Stay active. Don't let this fight linger. Give people a new memory of you. Come back and stay busy. Get a couple of nice wins, and it will fall into place. I'm not sure he knows what weight he's going to fight at. I see Joe said he's going to 147. I don't know if he's built for 147, Jack, as far as stature-wise. What's he, 5'7"?
Yeah, I really don't. I really don't know, but we talked about basically the Stevenson Lopez fight, but there are not that many big fights on the horizon, Frank. I mean, the Lopez Stevenson fight, to get it on the zone, you had to subscribe basically for a year. A part of the package, it's something like $542. They promise you one pay-per-view event a month. And that would be fine. The price would be fine if it's big fights on pay-per-view, the big fights. But the idea of pay-per-view was the Maratella-Andy Cruz fight, before that. That's the idea of pay-per-view.
Jack, that's what's so frustrating about this sport. I saw the fight. I didn't see it on the zone. But I was willing to pay for it, okay? But they make it so hard, and there's all these hoops that you have to jump through, and it's like the pool of fans is just not big enough where you can make it uncomfortable. Make it easy for us to to find the fights and see the fight so we can take an interest in it like you and I did years ago when we were coming up and younger. Today, it's a pain to find. And then when you find it, you have to jump through hoops and come up with passwords and this and that. And then we'll even pay for it. We'll let you gouge us because we love it so much. But sometimes, even if I'm willing to be gouged, I can't figure out the technology on how to get it on my screen. And I don't want to pay all that money and watch it on my phone.
Well, the traditional promoters are fading out. I mean, Top Rank, they're still technically in business. And one of their fighters, David Zayas, won over the weekend. He defended his belt and won another belt against a no-name opponent, essentially.
Yeah, he unified the BO and the BA.
Right, and Top Rank, they don't really have a network. They had ESPN before. So who knows where they'd exhibit their fight. And Bob Arum's, 94 years old. You just don't know where that company's headed. And Al Heyman with the PBC, they put on the occasional show, but they're no longer major players. The only promoter who's been very active over the last 20 years or so, who's still trying to make a big go at it, I guess would be Golden Boy, the only major promoter. But the way Oscar's been acting, I mean, the Virgil Ortiz Boots Ennis fight, to kind of lose control of your fighter because you're not making the fight. If you're a promoter and your fighter wants that fight bad enough and he insists on the fight, you got to make the fight. You're not the boss. I understand what the contract says. Everyone has to agree on the fight. I get all that. But Oscar, was playing some real hardball. What he was.
That's a shame because that's a fight we really need, Jack. Boxing needs Ortiz versus Boots because everybody, I think maybe it's 60-40 Boots, the consensus who will win, but it's not a given because Boots can be hit. Ortiz throws punches and he has power. That's the fight we need. We need to see Benavidez in the ring with either Bivol or Beterbiev. We can't look to Usyk to carry the sport because he has stayed active and he's gone to other guys' backyards. He's giving guys rematches who he's defeated. We can't really put it on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult sometimes to make fights because of the different promotional entities.
Right.
I get all that, but at this point in time, I mean, who are you exactly protecting? And Virgil Ortiz now suing Oscar. Oscar's suing him back. And you got the feeling, too, His Excellency Turkey, he backed off the Ennis-Ortiz fight because he doesn't like Oscar. So he wasn't going to pay big money for it. And Oscar countered with, well, we could have Ortiz fight Errol Spence and sell out the stadium, in Arlington, Texas and all. And from a business viewpoint, that's not a bad strategy. Your guy gets paid days, you make money, etc. But what Oscar wasn't considering, Virgil Ortiz is 100% pure fighter. Pure fighter. He wasn't going to settle for anything less than Boots Ennis. He wants to chase greatness, Virgil Ortiz, and beating an Errol Spence or revisiting one of the Charlo brothers isn't going to do it for him. But let me tell you what gets me sometimes with these promoters. And I like Eddie Hearn. I mean, I don't know him personally. I've met him. But I like Eddie Hearn. He's well-spoken. But these promoters all say the same thing. And the fighters go for it. They say, their legacy. That's the most important thing. The money will come, but it's legacy. Of course, it's a darn promoter's going to say legacy. I'd love a fighter to say, it's the money. I want to make the money, then the legacy will come after that. I'll worry about the legacy later. It's the money. That's what I'm talking about. And that they butter the fighters up and they flatter them. Legacy, you're going to chase greatness. You're going to be an all-time great. No worry. And with that, the money will come. I don't, do it the way I said. Talk money first. And then the legacy, So, the legacy is also important, but the money's my primary, thing
I hate to
here.
go back to him, Jack, but like again, Mayweather knew how to keep the fans starving, and he did a great job with that, and that paid him. And he was fortunate enough to be around at the time. There were some names there for him to fight,
Oh,
even
yeah,
though
yeah.
he
Joe
didn't fight
Bergman,
them at
wait,
their
wait.
best.
Joe Bergman made a comment. It was on the screen. Did anyone know there was caught last night on Super Boxing on Paramount? I stumbled on it and watched it, but I had no clue there was boxing on Sunday night. I did. I tried to get it, but it said to the thing I'd have to subscribe or something, to the Paramount the network. And I'm not in the mood for these ticky tack charges. Oh, $9.99 a month. The cat,
You will be, Jack, when you have to pay for NFL games.
I'll pay for NFL games. I'll pay because it's worth it to me. It's
Well,
worth it to
it's
me.
3 hours of entertainment, and you know what you're getting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do that for the NFL games, and I did it, for the NFL Network at one point. I mean, I still get the NFL Network, not here in Florida, New York, but
The red zone they charge you for now, right?
yes, certain. Well, it comes with my package, the NFL Network. But if it means enough to someone, yeah. But I'm going to tell you, Frank, there's so much competition, especially for a guy like you. You get a great college football game on a Saturday night. It better be a mega fight for you not to watch the college football game. If it's Boots against Virgil Ortiz, you're going to pick that over the college football game.
Yeah, there's no college game. There's no matchup in college. I mean, Texas and Ohio State's not going to take me away from Boots and Ortiz.
Oh, right. But what they might do, they put the main event on when they figure the college game ends. Okay?
Jack, the heavyweights are back in the news. Let's talk about one before we talk about another one who we've tired of talking about him, but I guess we have to address it. But what happened with Big Baby's hair?
He wears a toupee. It came loose. I mean, it was funny.
I didn't know he wore a toupee.
I didn't know either.
Didn't he say he washed his hair with something and it all came out? I thought, and that's why he wore the toupee?
Yeah, well, but with Big Baby, listen, Big Baby, I guess he revived his career. He got a split decision against, Kingsley there, and he fought a draw with Andy Ruiz, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So then he could be Usyk's next opponent after Usyk beats Ruiz.
Oh, please, no.
I'm just kidding.
But Big Baby was taken apart by Daniel Dubois. Okay, as well. So, but he's a name. He's out there. It serves a purpose, Big Baby. I mean, him against Derek Chisora, I maybe would have liked to have seen. But, Big Baby would have had a shot in that fight. I had actually picked Big Baby, and I wrote a story on it. You could probably Google it and see it, to beat Anthony Joshua. During the time Joshua was unbeaten,
I remember.
Joshua was supposed to fight Big Baby, and I was picking Big Baby. And Big Baby then got, his PD issues and couldn't fight, and
Ruiz got to fight.
And then Ruiz won. But everyone ridiculed the idea of Big Baby winning, just like they would have ridiculed the idea of Ruiz winning had anyone said it at the time. But what I don't like about Ruiz, he won that one fight to Joshua. Beautiful for him. He made some good money out of it. Good for him. Bless him for that. But it gave him a gold card where he could keep getting big fights the rest of his career. He just has to flash the card, and that's what I kind of resent.
But Jack, that's the heavyweight division today. You're never further out than one big win away from being in a title shot.
No, and it's an entertainment. Look at Keith Thurman. What did he do? He's won, 2 fights in 6 years?
No, I mean, but okay, he's a rare example, but I mean, in the heavyweight division, you're back with one fight. I mean, think about this. If Wilder were to look good against Chisora and stop him in 2 or 3 rounds, guess what? He's in line for something too.
He was supposed to be maybe fighting Usyk, as crazy as it was. And I don't know why Usyk veered away from Wilder. Why not just fight him? Do you suppose sometimes these fighters, as great as they are, their handlers overthink things that Usyk's handlers might be thinking, well, I know Wilder doesn't have much left, but he probably still has his punch. So there's always that slim chance.
There's nothing for Usyk to gain by fighting him, Jack. There's no doubt about that.
There's nothing to gain for him fighting anyone, Usyk. I mean, when you think of Usyk fighting, why exactly is Usyk fighting? He's not. I don't think he's fighting for legacy. I don't think he's fighting for money. I think he's fighting because he likes to fight. It's what he does. And can you imagine you're Usyk and you're training in Ukraine with what's been going on there? You know, Usyk came to New York. He was there for the fight, the awards. And sometimes you wonder if you're a guy like Usyk, you maybe, move your family to New York or LA or wherever, to just for the safety factor involved. But then again, he's a patriot and he's not giving up with what's going on.
Jack, Usyk is going to be a tough guy because a tough guy to rank historically because there's a very good chance he's going to retire undefeated. And when you look back at his record, he had 6 cruiserweight title fights, and I think he's had 7 or 8 heavyweight title fights. So he's going to be like 14 or 15-0 in title bouts, and he's going to be undefeated, and he will have cleaned out and beat the best guys in the division. He's going to be a very difficult guy to rank, and I think, Jack, it's going to bother some people that he's going to leap past some guys that if somebody would have said to you 3 years ago, he's going to rank above, say, Tyson or Bo, or I don't think he'll pass Lewis. I think he'll pass Tyson. I don't know about Holyfield, but he'll be right there.
Well, I hate to change subjects abruptly, but I want to ask you this question. The publication that I'm the senior American correspondent for, it used to be a weekly boxing news. Now it's called Boxing News Monthly. It comes out more pages. It's a bigger issue. I was asked on a dream fight to give my prediction, a short little piece. And there were 3 other writers giving their opinions. I don't know what their opinions were, who'd win a certain dream fight. I wanted to throw it past you. Obviously, both guys would have to be at their best. We understand that dream fights. Joe Calzaghe and Andre Ward.
Jack,
I'll tell you what I did first, if you want to hear. All this time, I gave an edge to Calzaghe, but when I actually had to submit my short story, I picked Ward to win a close one, saying that if they fought 3 times, it would be 2-1 either way. But I think Ward's versatility, he can hit harder. He's more mobile with his punches. Calzaghe came at you with tremendous energy and tremendous quantity. But I think Ward could offset that and win a close decision. So I went with Andre Ward by a close decision. And Andre Ward's not one of my favorite fighters.
I would go the same way, Jack, but it would be a heck of a fight because Calzaghe is very busy. He would make Ward uncomfortable to a degree. But I look at it this way. Old Hopkins ran Calzaghe very close. And I think Hopkins and Calzaghe have some things in common where we both know they're not above from making a little bit roughhouse. We both know they're very cerebral.
Hopkins and Ward have things in common. You said Hopkins.
Hopkins and Ward, yes. Hopkins and Ward. They're not afraid to get a little bit dirty. They're good at shutting the other guy down, taking away his best weapon, and they have a good chin, and they punch hard enough, especially Ward hits harder than Hopkins. But I think Ward would win that fight, but I think up until about the 8th or 9th round, Jack, it would still be in the balance. But I think down the stretch, I think Ward would land the cleaner shots, and he'd find a way to get it done. Lehman Pauly, I got Joe close in an ugly fight. Okay.
Perhaps. It could go either way. It could go either way. But if they fought 3 times, it would be 2-1 either way. Or if a guy won 2-0, they would be 2 fights that would be decided by a point or two.
Well, we know this much. It goes the distance. Neither guy gets stopped. I just think it comes down to would Calzaghe's pity pats make up for the clean shots that Ward landed? I think it'd be very close. I just think Ward would figure out a way, Jack, to somehow neutralize Calzaghe enough to get the judge's attention where it would look like he won a fight where not a whole lot happened.
You know, you talk about the super middleweight division, and you talk about the greatest ever, and do you include Roy Jones in the conversation as an all-time great super middleweight? Was he there long enough? Because we always compare Ward and Calzaghe, who was the best super middleweight of all time. Their names always come up very prominently.
I have to say Jones is the best super middleweight ever, Jack.
Right. Okay. So, and you mentioned when you mentioned Usyk before his legacy, you know, you wonder is he going to be rated as a cruiserweight? Because people like to use that as a cop-out because it's very hard to get a read on Evander Holyfield. If you want to rate Evander Holyfield, as much as he did as a heavyweight, and he did amazing things as a heavyweight, it's hard to give him an exact spot. You know, a lot of people are going to give him a spot in the top 10, maybe number 8 or something like that. So they cop out. They say, well, he was the greatest cruiserweight of all time.
Well, Usyk's in that conversation now with cruiserweights.
Kind of the same way. Who is a greater cruiserweight? Holyfield or Usyk? I'd have to revisit that because it's not an easy one to say strictly as a cruiserweight.
Jack, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because Holyfield fought and beat some really good guys at cruiserweight, and I think the Kwawi he beat in '86 was better than anybody that Usyk fought at cruiserweight. But there was a 10-pound difference though. When Holyfield was fighting cruiserweight, it was 190, right? Usyk, it was 200. So it's a little bit different. They're clearly the two best cruiserweights ever. And if you think about them as heavyweights, Jack, I could see a case that they're both in the top, say, based on a head-to-head and accomplishment and who they fought, they're both in the top 10 or 12.
Okay, let me throw this argument at you. Let's say Usyk has one more fight, wins convincingly on a knockout,
and retires 25-0.
Retires. And someone said to you, Frank, I think Usyk is the greatest heavyweight of all time. Now, you would say no way as much as you love Usyk, but you would say it more firmly than if someone said Rocky Marciano was the greatest of all time. He retired undefeated. And you could argue that Usyk's accomplishments match up to Marciano's favorably.
You know, it gives Usyk the edge, Jack. The fact is,
better than Dempsey's.
Even Dempsey, what gives Usyk the edge is he fought and beat him twice. A really big, physically big, and big puncher in Anthony Joshua. And in 24 rounds, he probably won 17, maybe 18 of those rounds. And then he fought, even though Fury was past his peak, he wasn't the same guy that fought Klitschko. He beat another guy who's 265 pounds, who's a good boxer, and he showed he could adjust, and he fought as the attacker in that fight, in those fights, and he made Fury fight his fight, and it's like, so he beat a really big guy who could box and a really big guy who could punch. It's hard to picture Marciano in there beating Joshua or Usyk.
Well, Stephen,
or Fury.
Says, but as Russell Peltz says, if Usyk or anyone else was fighting in Marciano's time, they'd be much smaller. And if Rocky was fighting in this time, he'd be much bigger. You know,
that's still hard to project, Jack. I know Russell says that, but that's still hard to project. How do we know how big Jack Johnson would be in 2026? We really don't know. What was he, 210 when he fought? I mean, what's he going to be, 260 today? It's just hard to do that.
Things evolve how you fight and training methods. like I was talking with Keith Engel on our sports show and the other network about this. We're talking about basketball. And the reason NBA players like Bob Cousy and the others and Oscar Robertson played a certain way, they were coached that way. And I gave an example when I played in Little League, okay? I played first base. I tried to catch the ball with one hand to throw it to first, which is the way you should do it, okay? But at that time, coaches insisted you catch everything with two hands. And if you didn't, you'd get chewed out. And you'd see that with the athletes in other sports. They were told to do things in the traditional way. Even Larry Holmes was saying the other day, he was talking about Georgie Benton, Eddie Futch, and Ray Arcel. He said those guys were great trainers, but they didn't know anything really about conditioning. And then it got me to thinking they were great trainers. You especially knew Georgie Benton, but did Benton know modern technology, how many miles you should do?
But Jack, those guys fought 15 rounds and sometimes 20 rounds. So and they didn't run out of gas. I think there's a limit where you could go a little too far with the conditioning, but I understand the nutritional part and we're able to fight at a later age. But what my question is, what separates the era? Like a big argument today, obviously, and we see it every day, is LeBron James and Michael Jordan. And the guys that make the case for James say, well, he plays against much better guys because the players are more athletic and a little bigger in the 2020s than they were in the 90s when Jordan played. Like, is Jordan and LeBron, could you say that's the same era?
No, listen, the quality was the same. You know, in the NBA from the 80s.
So if Jordan plays today, he dominates.
He would, well, I hate to use the word dominate because I hate to say that he dominated when he played. He was the best player in the game when he played, but I hate to say dominated. Yeah, he would be the same player. Yeah.
If Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting today, how good would he be? Would he dominate?
No, but he might be the best. Him and Terrence Crawford would be, what a fight. What a fight. An all-time great fight. And who knows which way it would go? Who knows? Yeah.
How about this? Marciano and Ali. Marciano won the title in 52. Ali won it in 64. Could you say they're of the same era?
You can, but people don't think of it. Marciano's last fight was 1955.
Right.
Ali fought in the 1960 Olympics. They were close together.
So there wasn't that much of a difference.
But the red flag against Marciano facing Ali is this: Ezzard Charles, the first fight. Ezzard Charles was a little past his peak. He gave Rocky all he could handle. You know, the Ali of the first Liston fight, who beats that version of Ali? I mean, right?
But wait a second, Jack. So Ali's prime is considered what, 66, 67?
Yeah, the first coming of Ali.
All right. So, all right. How about this? In 66, when he fought Chuvalo, okay, Chuvalo didn't have any trouble getting him to the ropes and cutting the ring off on him. So if Chuvalo could go 15 rounds with him, and Marciano's a smaller target, he comes at you faster, and he's a better puncher with both hands. And then you could say, well, and Frazier lived with Ali. There's a path for Marciano that he's not outmatched against Ali.
Right, I agree. And if once Rocky got things going a full head of steam, yeah. But we didn't know it until the second coming of Ali. He probably could have made adjustments. We didn't know it at the time. Okay?
Jack, think about this. When they did the computer fight between Ali...
1 minute warning, Frank.
Right.
We're gonna have
think about this. When they did the computer fight between Ali and Marciano, what did they do? They made it an exact replica of the Walcott first fight with the idea that Ali would get out to a big lead, but eventually Marciano would track him down And before the 15th round, he'd get the stoppage, because back before then, we didn't realize how durable Ali was. But all they did in that computer fight was take out Walcott and put Marciano or
But
Ali in.
by the way, Ali won in Europe that version of the fight. So, but yeah, Rocky would have had a shot at beating Ali. Yeah, based on what you're telling me with Shaballo, you can't dismiss his chances. Yeah, definitely. But
Okay, everybody.
okay.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.